Another good weekend for Penn State football on the recruiting trail with a pretty important commitment because any quarterback is an important commitment. So let's start there. Fitz here on Fitz's recruiting update. Peyton Falzone, four-star quarterback from Pennsylvania, commits to the Nittany Lions. Just overall, your thoughts on this player and his meaning for the team.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one because number one, I think the intrigue of all of it, really, you look at quarterback recruiting, in-state recruiting, athlete recruiting, just everything that you look at from this one is very intriguing because you see the rankings there. If you're watching on YouTube, the industry has him 206 overall, number 11 athlete, number 5 in Pennsylvania. On 3 has him 290 overall, number 13 athlete, number 4 in Pennsylvania. He's coming to play quarterback. And this is something we've talked about on the show a bunch. Are we convinced that he's a quarterback in the long run? Saying it's still up in the air, but he's going to have the opportunity to do so. And I think that was a big part of securing this commitment because he wants to play quarterback. He is a guy that is, I don't want to say new to the position, but he's not a naturally, he was not playing Pee-wee quarterback and a quarterback all the way up through, which is encouraging for his development. You look at what he does on the field, and he is, as I put it on the board, he is a moose wearing pads. He is a 6'4.5", 6'5", 205-pound, playing in the Lehigh Valley, so he looks much bigger than everybody else. That is a runaway train at times. He is making some improvements on his throwing motion. T-Frank, you and I have a conversation right now.
Yep.
That's kind of the off to the side where everybody's going to focus on his delivery and his mechanics and all that stuff, period. I think it's a bit of a red herring. I think that if you look at what he's doing as a developmental prospect, you don't have to have the best mechanics. You don't have to have the best, all that kind of stuff. What I want to see is the processing. What I want to see is the things that you need as a quarterback to recognize what's going on before the snap and recognize how that's going to impact the next 6 seconds.
Good. If
What's
you're
that?
watching it, so this is a highlight here. If you're watching what happens on some of these highlights, it's not necessarily great process. He's chucking the ball deep. He's hitting some of these plays. Now, this is a beautiful throw, right, but the process, the play after the snap, I'm going to break the offensive game plan and go freelance. If you see that too often, that tells you something about the processing during the play.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had this conversation. I know you're a big Josh Allen guy, and every 6'5", 200 and some pound quarterback is going to be compared to Josh Allen. But you look at what he did at Wyoming, and you saw some of the same things. You saw some of the I don't want to say carelessness with the ball, but you saw some of the issues that could plague him pop up throughout his career, his college career, and then he fixed it, which is good. So it's going to be on him to fix not only his throwing motion, his mechanics, and all that stuff, but also just gaining a general feel for the position. And if he can do that, the ceiling is sky high. I mean, I'm not going to lie here. This guy is a super athlete. Like this is, he ran a hand time 10.68 in the 100. He ran a 4.5 at Penn State last year. I'm going to go with the 4.5 instead of 10.68. I'm really encouraged to see, or I'm really interested to see how that FAT time shakes out in districts, states, whatever it may be on the 100-meter dash. But to be at that speed, to be at that level, at that size is moving, absolutely moving. So I'm encouraged to see what's going to happen from that. Penn State, you look at what they have in Troy Huhn, you look at what they have in Peyton Falzone, two very, very different guys, and two guys with a lot to improve upon, which that's kind of what you expect with high school quarterbacks. So it's so intriguing to look at this, and there's not much else you can say other than that if he reaches his ceiling, that's a different kind of quarterback than we've seen here. You know, he's Drew's size, but he's also, you know, a better athlete and a better runner and all that
I compared him a bit to, in terms of potential, Justin Fields level potential in terms of having the arm and the athleticism. Well, I mean, that's so I was trying to think of the guys.
We pick the best guys, and then it doesn't happen all the time, and then it looks stupid. And so, but no, I mean, you look. So this was a comparison on the board to what Bo was able to do, and it was very interesting to look at the numbers, the testing numbers and things like that. So he's faster than Bo. Bo was a better runner, like a better vision runner, a better guy that can find those holes. He's got a much stronger arm than Bo. Bo was a better passer, like finding the layers and doing all that kind of stuff. So I'm very like that's a bad comparison, not yours, mine, as a bad comparison in terms of an athlete growing into a quarterback. So I'm very it's going to be fun to watch. And of course, we've said before, like if that doesn't work out, he's got 11-inch hands, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got all the testing numbers that align with the guys Penn State has brought in as tight ends. So I think he'd be a hell of a tight end. So
Yeah.
I'm very up in the air on how this one's going to turn out, but I can't wait to watch it. So I'm very, very excited. With the portal era being what it is, taking 2 quarterbacks is a smart thing. Taking 2 quarterbacks, the math works out for that. And Penn State's been overly committed to Troy Huhn for a long, long time. But you look at how this stacks up when Drew leaves, Gruckmeyer, Smollett going to go at it, and one of them isn't there. Like, I think the writing is on the wall there, and then you go from whomever that may be to Beckham Kritza and Troy Huhn and now Peyton Falzone. So they certainly needed bodies in that room, certainly needed to stack that up. So I think that the math makes a ton of sense. They have looked at taking 2 quarterbacks in several classes now, and this is the one that makes a lot of sense.
It's something, again, as you just pointed to there, this is not new for Penn State. I mean, Bo Perbula, Drew Aller were both in the same class. Michael Johnson Jr., Taquan Roberson, on and on and on, back and forth. I know, but
I know.
Not all of them are like the best polls, but they have gone with this approach of, and I think this is smart, because the things that make a quarterback great, as you just mentioned, in terms of the processing, the ability, I mean, we've seen every shape and form of quarterback come through this program, and you don't know what's going to result in the special mix. It's a between the ears position, kind of like specialists, quarterback, kicker, punter, those kind of things. There's obviously the physical component to it, but the more you get through and the more high opportunity, high potential players that you bring through, the better your odds of one of them hitting, on the highest end. So I think it's going to be an interesting thing to watch these 2 in this class develop and compete as they go, because I do think that they are closer in terms of their ability and their potential on the high end than Aller and Perbula were, or any of the other quarterbacks we've put together in those 2 quarterback mixes. Now, not to say that both Drew and Bo couldn't be starters, but the high end of Drew, that is the difference between him and Bo Perbula on the football field and the determinations between the 2 of them. Anyway.
I'm not ready to jump there. Also, Michael Johnson Jr. went to the portal again yesterday. So
okay.
That one's been bouncing around for a while. I think he went to FAU and then Q's, and then we will see where he ends up next. So the saga is not over.
So you had a chance, I believe, to talk to Jake Kreul, who was here this weekend. Dorian Barney also was here this weekend. So just generally give us some of the idea about what the feedback was and how the latest round of visits on campus went, just highlighting those 2 guys.
Yeah, very quickly. Jake Kreul was on campus at the beginning of last week. He went to Oklahoma over the weekend for their spring game Crimson Combine. I don't even know what they're calling it, but their modified spring celebration there. So he was there, but he's been a ton of places over the last couple of weeks. Went to Ohio State, Michigan in March, Florida State, Florida is in it. He's got a top 12. Penn State's in it, and has gotten 2 visits from him, but he's been all over the place. I mean, this is a well-traveled recruit in the class of 2026. He's also a darn good recruit in the class of 2026. So he's looking at Penn State mainly because of their tradition of putting pass rushers in the league that are roughly his size and, his measurables and his sort of game style. He's 6'2.5". He's not the biggest guy in the world, not the absolute longest guy in the world, but he's a trucker, man. He gets in there and he makes plays. So he's been one of Deion Barnes' top guys for a long, long time. He did make it to campus in February for the February 1st junior day, and then all of a sudden made it back this weekend. So what his plan is he's got these 12 schools. He's visited, I think, 9 of them this calendar year. And then he's going to break it down in May and set up his official visits. He's not ready to name official visits. One of the few prospects in 2026 not ready to name official visits. So that's the next step if you're Penn State. Get on that calendar, see if you can get there. I think we labeled it on the board as a puncher's chance. I think that's where Penn State stands right now because there's a lot of good schools. And he is an IMG kid, but he's also an Orlando kid. So he's a Florida kid. So some of those guys that will come from all over the country to play at IMG, and then they might look home or they might look closer to home at least. He's a Florida kid, so it doesn't change much in the math of how far away from home he'll have to go if he does go to Penn State, but he is a high priority on the board. You look at that edge board with Carter Meadows and Jackson Samuels Ford visited last week, and they just got a ton of guys that they can look to and look to try and close. I'm not going to say pick from because that is the wrong way to put it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there. Penn State's going to, get a good defensive end class. I feel pretty confident about that. Luke Wafel, I don't know why I didn't mention Luke Wafel in the first place, but yeah, they've got some options out there. Kreul is certainly still on the board. I would take the field over Penn State right now. I'd be surprised if he did end up here, but it would be a very pleasant surprise. They'd be very happy with that. And if you look at his comments in my story, he definitely is looking at more than just location, more than just some of the regular things. He's really intrigued by Penn State's assembly line of defensive ends.
So Dorian Barney, an interesting name that has cropped up more and more frequently. Anything just quickly you wanted to share there? And of course, Maxwell Hiller, Joey O'Brien, Jackson Ford. These are guys that Ryan and Fitz have connected with and got feedback from over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Haven't mentioned this yet so far. Please subscribe to the Blue White Illustrated here on the YouTube channel. But of course, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is a place you go to get all the recruiting intel. You can join for just $1 for the first week. And then, of course, after that, you can decide if you want to join us for a year or not. Quick sidebar, if you subscribe here to the YouTube channel, that will automatically enroll you. We're picking 5 winners, Blue White Weekend, to get a yearly subscription to the site just for subscribing and supporting us here on the YouTube channel. Like the video, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fitz, any last thoughts here about visits and players from this past week?
Dorian Barney was a guy that I put on my February big board. I put it at the end because he's from Georgia. He was once committed to Alabama. Now he's back on the market. I think Texas A&M is pretty strong here, but put him on there. He is a native of Erie, Pennsylvania. So obviously he's in Georgia now. So, but there are connections back to Pennsylvania. So I think that matters. I think he's been one of Terry Smith's top guys, along with Kari Adams there at corner. And Penn State is making some, I think he's making some headway. He's got an official visit set up for next month. So be interesting to see how much ground they can make up with Barney. It's an interesting recruitment. Reminds me a lot of Elliot Washington's recruitment, to be honest with you. Committed to Bama. He stepped back and all of a sudden, had some different kind of options all over the country. I think he's mentioned Georgia and Alabama and stuff like that, but I think it's more Texas A&M, Penn State. You've got different schools in different areas, and usually what that means is the Georgia and Alabama probably not coming as hard as he thought they would, or they were at one point. So I think there's a window there for Penn State to work its way in. And Terry Smith's pretty darn good recruiter if you haven't been following along. So I'm curious to see how that official visit comes to play. But Penn State has got some connections there. They've leaned on those connections. They got him to campus finally. And this is a guy that we thought may commit to Texas A&M a couple of weeks ago, but seems to have slowed it down and is going to take official visits now. One more thing before we get out of the recruiting update. T. Frank, thank you for doing the Peyton Falzone video on Sunday. I got back to you too late. Busy time of year this year with, I sound like Ryan, but baseball is taking over. And so we're busy all the time now. So appreciate you getting that out there. And I'm glad we could get some thoughts together on this Tuesday show.
That'll do it for Fitz's recruiting update. Once again, like the video, always helps us out, and subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for more of that information.